As much as we humans are petrified at the sight of an eagle or vulture, we are equally as intrigued and curious about their nature. After all, Mother Nature is filled with creatures having all sorts of unique traits. One such creature is the Himalayan griffon vulture. This vulture is kind of an oldie, and as the name suggests, its place of origin was the Himalayas. You would be amazed to know that the Himalayan griffon vulture, or simply the Himalayan vulture, is one of the two largest Old World vultures and true raptors. They originally belonged to the continents of Europe, Asia, and Africa, which were collectively called the Old World. Old World vultures also include eagles, buzzards, kites, and hawks. As far as the vulture's natural habitat is concerned, it mostly resides in the upper Himalayan regions and the Tibetan plateaus. It has a widespread existence and is unevenly distributed to various regions like Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and parts of China. However, we have sufficient evidence to know for sure that the griffon vulture can also be seen in Thailand, Singapore, Burma, and Cambodia. If we talk about its morphological features, the bird is gigantic enough to be 40.6 to 45.3 inches in length and has a wingspan of 29.7 to 31.7 inches. It has a fairly large tail with a size of 14 to 15.9 inches. A fun fact about the Himalayan griffon vulture is that it is probably the largest and the heaviest vulture found in the Himalayan region as compared to others. The feathers on the vulture are coarse and rather spiky. They have a head that is mostly yellowish in adults and whitish among the young vulture babies, along with feet that might be anywhere between greenish-gray and white. You might be wondering by now about the title of the video, i.e., Nature gave it a war mask. Here's the thing. One of the most intimidating features of the griffon vulture is its eyes, or should we say, fake eyes. Yes, you heard it right. The Himalayan griffon vulture is notorious and likes to a trait of its own, and for that, it has adopted a pair of fake eyes to look aggressive and scare potential predators away. However, the catch is that the fake eyes are not exactly eyes, but a precise illusion that is formed out of the vulture's plumage. The plumage is arranged in such a manner that it creates a delusion for the ones watching. What complements these fake eyes is the actual neck of the vulture, which often looks like the bridge of the nose from a distance. This looks as if the eagle is wearing a war mask to protect itself from its enemies. After all, there's no animal that doesn't get scared after watching the vulture's unique war mask given to him by Mother Nature. When the vulture decides to fly down for scavenging, the vulture makes sure that it does not fly anywhere below the elevation of 1,215 meters above sea level. The Himalayan griffon vulture mostly preys on dead animals, like any other ordinary vulture would, and makes an extremely disturbing sound while descending to feast on the carcasses. Despite the fact that they feed on dead animals, they are still very choosy and prefer the dead animal to be a yak. Whatever it is, we would like to applaud the audacity of the bird. Not only with the type of dead animal, but they are also quite choosy when it comes to eating off of it and usually prefer the fleshy parts. Now, you guys might not like this part, but the Himalayan vulture is also guilty of feeding on human flesh. It usually feeds on human corpses found lying around celestial burial grounds, or better known as Tibetan sky burials. The griffon vulture is a pretty dominant vulture, and the other vultures don't get to mess with it. However, it does fear the snow leopards and gray wolves. But apart from them, they pretty much rule their territory. Vultures are scary creatures even when they are alone. Just imagine how brutal they can possibly be when in a kettle. The entire wake is undoubtedly the strongest and most dangerous together. In fact, when in wake, it would not take more than 30 minutes for the vulture to rip the whole flesh apart from a human's or a sheep's body. As far as yaks are concerned, it would barely take 2 hours for the griffon vulture to make a good treat out of it. And rest assured that the party does not even have to put in an awful lot of effort to do this. For them, it would be as easy as tearing paper. If the human flesh being ripped off and preyed on was not enough, the vulture has another creepy habit. There is evidence claiming that the Himalayan griffon vultures are often seen feeding on pine needles, an unexplained behavior that cannot be for obtaining nutrition. This can be another reason due to which the griffon vulture is regarded as one of the scariest birds to exist. Owing to their vibrant color and distinguished appearances, it is not that difficult to spot these griffon vultures from a distance. The pale blue skin and the dark-colored feathers on the wings and tail are some other important features that let us differentiate the griffon vultures from the Indian vulture, eagles, and other vultures. Now let us talk about the vulture's breeding patterns and preferred seasons. The vulture likes a relatively cooler temperature and prefers to breed during the month of January. The nesting spots of the bird are quite weird. It likes to make its woody nest on the edges of a mountain cliff to ensure that it is unreachable for other animals. The choice of the location of the nest is strongly driven by the griffon vulture's major concerns, which revolve around saving its offspring from potential predators. Not just predators, but from humans too, as the vulture tries to avoid human interaction as much as possible. And thus, it chooses tall mountains standing as high as 1,820 meters in the northeastern regions and 4,245 meters in the Tibetan areas. Such an isolated location is perfect for them, owing to their sedentary lifestyle. Despite being sedentary, though, the griffon vulture is a highly sociable animal and likes living with fellow griffon vultures, especially during the breeding season and nesting. It is often observed that more than one pair of griffon vultures can live on the same cliff. In fact, 5 to 7 pairs of griffon vultures can fulfill their nesting needs on the face of the same cliff. The nests, however, are not even half as large as the size of the griffon vulture and tend to grow bigger with time and frequent usage. The female griffon vulture usually lays its eggs between December 25 and March 7, followed by an average incubation period of 54 to 58 days. The hatchlings commonly live with their parents for 6 to 7 months after being born, and then they are assumed to be mature enough to live on their own. These young birds often prefer flying towards the northern plains of India. There's a pretty astonishing fact about these young birds that you might not be aware of. If they do not get food for some time, they will die without any symptoms or warnings. This is not the case with other young birds or vultures who might show slow growth due to food scarcity but will not die of hunger. One of the major threats to the survival of the class of family that Himalayan griffon vultures belongs to is a drug called diclofenac. The drug is mostly found in animal carcasses that has been treated with diclofenac, which vultures feed on. This results in their consumption of the drug, which is ultimately responsible for the large-scale decline in the population of their species. The Himalayan griffon vulture, however, does not seem to rapidly decline due to the aforementioned phenomenon, although a decline in the number of nesting birds in parts of Nepal has been registered over time. Humans have somewhat a major role to play in it as well. Rock climbers and hikers are believed to cause serious disturbances to the nesting birds on the cliffs, which annoys the bird colony to a greater extent. The griffon vulture has been identified as near threatened by the IUCN Red List. Even so, no species-specific conservation plans have been carried out by the wildlife authorities. However, thanks to Buddhism practices in the Tibetan region, it saves the griffon vulture from getting poached due to the spiritual aspects attached to it. But poaching in other regions is still a concern. Therefore, a special monitoring program should be designed that keeps track on the griffon population, their breeding phases, eating habits, and ensure that the program satisfies economic, social, and political needs as well. Other than that, any biological conservation method might not be of much use to protect the population of the Himalayan griffon vulture. Also, the involvement of the local communities in conservation methods would prove to be highly effective in regions where the vulture resides. Let us know what you think about this war mask, human flesh-eating, beautiful, strong beast in the comment section below. Like this video, subscribe, and tell us what you would like to watch next time. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.